How to thread your sewing machine. On any sewing machine, whether you're working on a newer state-of-the-art machine like the Bernina I have in front of me, or if you have an older kind of classic model, you will not have sewing success unless you thread the machine correctly. So we're going to review how to thread the machine. Your machine might have a lay-through threading system like my Bernina does, and a lot of newer machines have, or older machines will have this tension disc, and we have to get the thread seated correctly into the tension disc on that. I'm going to start off with my spool of thread, and I'm going to make sure that if there's anything rough on the spool, like this one has kind of a catchy edge down here at the bottom, I'm going to put it towards the right so that it does not interfere with the thread as it pulls off the spool. So now I'm hitting just against the smooth edge of the spool. The other thing I'm going to do on any machine is make sure that I have the presser foot up, because when the presser foot is up, then the tension discs are open, and it's easier to make sure the thread is actually getting engaged into tension. So I'm going to follow the threading path from my machine, and as I come through where I know the tension discs are, I'm putting a little back pressure on the thread here, and I'm pulling down and kind of flossing back and forth with a downward motion. So that's going to make sure that my thread gets seated correctly into tension. As I continue on with the threading, before I get it through the eye of the needle, I can actually stop at this point. I'm pulling on the thread, it's pulling nice and smooth, and if I put my presser foot down, it's now tight and not pulling. That tells me that I've threaded it correctly. So the next step will be that I will thread it through the eye of the needle and be ready for sewing. I'm going to switch over to the older machine with the tension dial in the front with numbers on it. So what I'm going to do here is I've had the foot also in the up position so that I know that the tension discs are as open as they can be. And I'm going to put a little back pressure on the thread here by holding it, getting the thread in there, my little bit of a flossing action, and pulling up and over. And when I get it through the take-up lever, I'm going to do the same thing as far as putting the foot down and making sure that it's in tension. So you can see that it's pulling that wire up, and the thread is now nice and tight. And when the foot's up, it's pulling nice and smooth. So that's telling me that my upper thread is connected correctly. The other things to be mindful of is make sure that you are using good quality thread. Make sure that you are using the right kind of needle for your fabric. There are different types of needles for different types of fabric. If you're not getting a good stitch, another troubleshooting tip is changing the needle, because if a needle has gotten a burr, or if you've run over a pin by accident, if it's just gotten dull from a lot of sewing, it might be time for a new needle.